Recruiters that are working for outside of the company, their job is to get you as much money as possible. Internal recruiters, the job is to save the budget of the company. So what they're trying to do is get the best quality staff at the lowest price. Say you're going for a role, want 60k, but your old salary was 40k. They know if they offered you 50k, that's 10k more than you was on. They're not gonna aim to offer you 20k more than you was on before, because they feel like now they're doing you a favor. The top third of your CV is the most important part. When they say online, you got 6 seconds, you really do. I see hundreds of CVs. If all the good stuff's at the bottom, you probably ended up in my no pile. In the interview side of things, it's about contribution. Can you show how you can, if you say in an interview like it's normal, then you'll access sometimes parts of the hidden job market that you didn't even realize. But sometimes when you see a job, then it suddenly goes down. There's 2 reasons. Either I hate jobs that don't have the salary advertised. The reason why, because there isn't a range. There's gonna be people working in the same department on 2 massively different salaries doing the exact same job. That's why the salary is not advertised. If it's not in the budget, I'm not in your building. Not everyone has that, and I get it. And if you don't have that, there are other things you can negotiate. Negotiate things like annual leave, 20 and the 30k pay rises. That is usually easier when you leave your job. But within your job, do I think you can get 10k pay rises? Absolutely.
You're not defined by where you come from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big message that I always want to tell people. Like
you have to be able to be uncomfortable. Like be comfortable with being uncomfortable. When you grow up in ends, you don't realise it when you're confident, but you have an audacity to do things that ordinarily most people wouldn't be willing to do.
Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I got some feedback that I need to introduce myself. So yeah, I'm the creator of SAVVYWALLET, and I guess I'm your host. So the name's Atto, or you can call me At. Some people call me Big Ats as well. We got a special guest in the building. Adele, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Very, very welcome. I'm actually looking forward to this conversation because I saw, like I told you, like I saw a clip of yours come up on TikTok, and I was like really amazed by the advice that you was given, you know, about careers. And I think we're at a time where, you know, the job market is a bit in an iffy place right now. So I feel like we need a bit of guidance of how we can kind of navigate that. But actually, let's start with this. Who is Adele?
Who am I? I was thinking about this earlier. Like, this is like an interview question that I always help people on. Like, tell me about yourself. That's what it feels like. But I am first gen of 2 Caribbean parents. So my mum's Jamaican. My dad is from Grenada. I am only child for my mother, but one of like 7 or 8 for my dad.
Okay.
There's a lot of us. Yeah. I'm a mum, entrepreneur, daughter, sister, like, yeah, that's me really. I'm
like
just me, like a regular girl doing her thing. Was able to navigate corporate, went from teaching to human resources.
Okay, you did teaching. Okay.
Yeah, which is
nice.
like people have often like, well, I did childcare and then moved into human resources. So yeah, that was my journey. But yeah, so that's who Adele is.
That's epic. And we're going to talk a lot about that because I feel like a lot of people struggle with the whole switching careers. They feel like they can't do that, and like your testament to that. And now you're switching again, kind of. You're like an entrepreneur now, right?
And I've switched twice realistically. Okay. I've done 2 career moves
mad.
Through my career. So yeah.
Oh, wow. That's crazy. So you said that like one parent's from Grenada. What was that one?
Yeah, so my dad's Grenadian, my mum's Jamaican.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you born in any of those countries?
No,
or?
so I'm first gen here.
Okay,
so I'm for them. So they was both born and raised in the Caribbean.
Okay.
So, you know, like being the first gen in the UK for Caribbean parents, it's a bit of a, it's a bit weird because they're still going to raise you really Caribbean versus being really British.
Yeah.
But it's the fight between the two because I'm in a British country. So, but I've got Caribbean parents.
Like, doing that,
like, I would say I was raised with my mum. So mum was a single parent, like being raised with my mum, just me and my mum. Having a Jamaican mum, any Jamaican people that are watching, I've got a Jamaican mum who's born and bred in Jamaica. It's very different from having a Jamaican parent that's like someone who's Jamaican heritage versus born in Jamaica. Yeah, I definitely think the way I am and where I am in my career is because of my mum. Absolutely. My mum, I'm a problem solver. Like when you said, who am I? That's what I should have led with. I'm a problem solver. And it's because of my mum. My mum was always, she was the woman who was very much like, if I got 98 on a test, where's the other 2%?
Swear down.
100%. Like, I had never heard well done ever coming up.
Wow.
It was always, well, if there's a problem, fix it. She don't want to hear about the problem. Come to my mum with the solution. And that created who I am today. Always wanting to figure things out on my own. Always wanting to not relying on people. Coming from a single parent home as well, seeing my mum having to figure it out. So I've become that almost. So yeah, very much like when people say to me like, oh, how did you change industry? How did you change career? You have to figure stuff. If you want something in my household, you're taught to figure it out. Like I'm from Caribbean household. Mum would say to me, you're in England and you can't make things work. Listen, you can't go and tell my mum like things are hard. It should be like, I'm from Jamaica and you're telling me you got all these things. You got a red passport. That's what I'd always hear. You got a red passport and you think life is hard. Nothing was hard as far as my mum's concerned. So I think that definitely made me, like, gave me a different viewpoint from my friends who maybe whose parents were born here. Also, my mum didn't necessarily know how to navigate. She knew how to navigate the UK from a immigrant perspective, if that makes sense. So there's things about the UK that are different that she didn't know how to navigate. So I learned things that she didn't necessarily know, but then I'd always get sucked back into the Caribbean.
Okay, so you like best of both worlds,
so the best of both worlds kind of thing. Yeah,
I love that. I love that. Hey, that's epic. Problem solver. That's what we like. We like problem solvers because we're gonna solve a lot of people's problems today on the podcast.
We're gonna try.
So whereabouts like did you grow up mostly? Like
I grew up in Hillingdon. Like the borough I grew up in was Hillingdon.
North-ish London?
No, like West. So just outside of West
Cool.
London. So like people probably heard like Uxbridge, Ruislip, all them type of places. So outside of London, that's where I grew up. Very suburban kid. Where I grown up's changed a lot now, but growing up, I was probably the only black kid in a lot of room. Okay. Very much used to that. But then my family is from South London, Peckham, Lewisham, Croydon, and also Harlesden, Northwest.
Okay.
So big up all my family that's listening, but a lot of my family are from like Northwest, Stonebridge, Harlesden. So family time, especially on Sundays, was spent in North London, like Northwest London. That was every weekend from a little kid. Also, then when I got to about 14, 15, I started hanging around with my cousin in South London. Every Friday after school, I was in South London and then back home ready for school on a Monday. So outside school, I wasn't the only black person in the room. Like I was very much, everyone looked like me. But in school, I was the only person that looked like me. In my area, I was one of the only people that looked like me.
Okay.
So I almost had the best of both worlds in the sense of growing up in an area where no one looks like you and people remind you every day that no one looks like you. And I dealt with a lot of racism growing up and stuff like that, like being in the 90s and stuff. There was a lot, like I dealt with a lot being the only black kid. But as an adult, that has helped me definitely navigate the corporate world.
Yeah? You feel like it, yeah?
100%.
Feel like what do you feel like you learned from that?
I'm comfortable. I can be comfortable. Now, it's very different in my personal life. Like I won't travel to places if I feel like I'm going to be the only one, if that makes sense. But in corporate spaces, I'm very comfortable. I'm okay being the only one. A lot of people, and I know a lot of people that look like us, don't always feel that way. And that's why there's not a lot of representation in senior management and management. Like I feel like there's not a representation in general.
There could be more.
There should be way more representation. So I tend to be at my level when I'm working as a manager or a director, the only one who looks like me. Recently I went on a training, there was like 40 people in the room, I was the only black person. That's very normal to me, but when you grow up as a kid and that's your reality, when you become an adult, it doesn't feel that weird.
Yeah, it doesn't, it's not like different. This is
it's normal.
Like
I can be in the room and I'm very aware that I'm the only black person, but I'm not overly uncomfortable. And then I can be with all my friends and be everyone looks like me and we'll just, so I can have those two sides of me. And I think that makes it a little bit different.
I think it's good to be adaptable because I feel like in the corporate world, that is a skill that is definitely required, right? Because
100%.
You're going to come up with all types of situation and sometimes you just have to be able to think on your feet. You can't always plan for everything, right?
Yeah, and you can't always, in the corporate world, you can't always, everything's not going to always be comfortable.
Yeah.
Everyone's not always going to look like you. And that's not even just a black-white thing. Like, even as a woman, sometimes I'm in the boardroom and I'm the only woman in the room. Like, there's all men. So, like, the higher up I get, there's more men that are leaders than there are necessarily females. So, just being able to navigate being in the room and not always being the first. It's really important. I talk about that a lot. Like, are you okay being the first? Are you okay to lead? Because if you open the door, you can bring people with you. But sometimes someone has to go first. Yeah. And I'll hear from a lot of people like, oh, I don't want to be the only one in the room. But but if you don't go first, how can someone come second and third?
Exactly.
So being willing to be
leading,
that.
Yeah, it's true.
You don't always have to see it to be it.
Yeah.
And I'm sometimes very much like that. Like I don't have to see myself in a room to know that I want that job. Even if I don't see another person who looks like me or another woman, I will make a decision. I want that job. And then open the door for other people so that when they come in the room, they see faces like mine. I want my daughter to grow up in a world where she sees senior managers. And I don't want it to stop. Like a lot of people that look like us get to consultant level. Or I want people to go in a room and be like, oh, the director's a black woman. Oh, okay. That's really cool. That's what I want my daughter to be able to see. So
Yeah, and I can imagine that's gonna look. We're gonna help people get there right today.
Definitely.
For real. So you mentioned like obviously you became a teacher. How did that come about? That was like teaching.
I always so to start with, I thought I was going to be a journalist. This is going to sound so random. I wanted to be a journalist. I was really good at English. Wanted to be a journalist. Thought I was going to be a journalist, and then someone said to me, "Oh, you know, you have to go to like where there's war and stuff if you want to be a really good journalist." And I said, "Pardon?" And I was young at this time, and I said, "What?" They were like, "Yeah, journalists have to go where there's war and they have to do all these." I said, "No, I don't want to be a journalist now. What am I going to do?" I know, it's so random. I was like 14. And then the only other thing I'd ever done was help out in like youth clubs and stuff. And I was like, oh, I like doing that. Maybe I could work with kids. Maybe I could teach. Maybe I could be in childcare. Like, what could I do? And I kind of fell into it, and I was good at it. First day I went into a school, a kid walked up to me and started talking to me, and a teacher walked over to me and said, "We've been here for 8 months. That child hasn't spoken in 8 months." And I was like, "What?" And they were like, "Whatever you did," because I just bent down and started talking to all the kids, and she came over and talked to me. They were like, "Whatever you did, like, we want you to work here." And I was like, "What?" And that was like, I was there for an interview. Like, that was it. They were like, "We're going to offer you the job." And I was like, "We haven't even had the interview yet." And they were like, no, you got a child to walk over to you. And that was it. That was it for me. Started my career, started studying. That's what I wanted to do. Thought I was going to open my own nursery school. Like, I really had a goal. Did that for like 10 years. I was a nursery manager before I left. And then I had my daughter and was like, yeah, this ain't for me.
Why? What changed? Why did it?
I was running a nursery. I was with other people's children all day, and I'd get home and I just wouldn't have the energy for my own. And she was like 18 months, and I was like, this doesn't work. Like, I want to have that energy for her. I want to be jumping around and doing all the silly stuff. Like, I want that energy at home. And it just didn't. It was having her that changed everything for me. And I knew I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what. And then started talking to friends and just started having chats. And someone at work who I was really close to actually said to me, "You'd be good in recruitment or human resources." And I was like, what? Why? And then she just started giving me examples. She was like, "You're good with people." Like, she was like, "You're organised." And I was like, okay. And I said, "But why that random thing?" She goes, "I just think you'd be really good at it." And apparently she had tried it herself and she had hated it. And I said, "So you think I'm going to be good at something you hate?" And she was like, "I just think you'd be good." And I was like, "Yeah, but how am I going to, there's no way I could leave childcare and be in that, because you'd have to get qualified and stuff. And I'm not about to go back to school and do all that." And then I started doing research, and I started doing more research, and I said, she might be right. Started talking to people, asking questions. Yeah. And then said, now I just got to figure out, how do I get from here to here? And I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit lazy with certain things.
Okay, what are you lazy with?
Lazy in the sense of the thought of going back and studying for like 4 years, 3 years. No, I was like, with a child as well, I was like, this is not what I'm doing. There has to be another route. And when I say quicker, lazy, right? I mean, it's the problem solver in me. There has to be a quicker route to get to where I want. And I figured out the quicker route. Okay. I made my CV look the way I needed it to look. And I got in the room. And that was it. All I kept saying to myself was, go one step at a time. So I say that to anyone I work with, anyone I talk to. When it comes to your career, stop worrying about the biggest end goal and decide what the goal is and then go one step at a time. All I needed to do to start with was get in the room, right? So I started to network, started to talk to people. Spoke to someone who ran a HR company who used to supply staff to my nursery school. Okay. She said, "I'll give you an interview." I said, "Cool." Went and got an interview. Okay, with her. So
it was your connection.
I didn't get the job, FYI.
Okay. Wait, it was the connection. Something like that?
No, listen, I told you because I wanted you guys to know the different routes you can take. Okay. That really didn't help me, and I'm letting people know because I want people to know that everything isn't always rosy. Yeah. That was my first ever interview. Okay. I left that place crying. Wow. She said to me, "Stick to what you're doing. You will be no good in human resources and recruitment." That is what she said, and I had a lot of respect for her. Like, CEO, woman, do you know what I mean? Woman of colour. Like, I was like, yes. Yeah. She said to me, "Stick to what you're doing. I'll help you even get a better job doing what you're doing, but this ain't for you." Wow. And the reason I'm telling that story is just because there are 8-9 billion people in this world. Don't let one person crush your dream. Because if I had listened to her, I wouldn't be here sitting on this couch talking to you. And I wouldn't be doing the things I was doing. Yeah. I cried. I felt my feelings. And then I said, there's no one in this world that is going to tell me I can't do something. Got myself into 2 other interviews, got offered both those jobs. Less than 2 years later, that same woman tried to headhunt me. Swear down. So do you see how life comes full circle? But if I had listened to her, I would still be doing a job that I did not enjoy. I was good at it. Yeah, I was good at what I did, but I didn't enjoy it anymore. But she told me, nah, this isn't for you.
That's mad. So how did you get those 2 jobs? Like, what was like the steps that you kind of took? Because I guess there's a lot of people that probably
Thinking like,
they're struggling as well, right, to get their first role.
look at the job description. Now I've been doing this for a long time. There's more things that you can do, but I'm going to start with this is what I did. I looked at the job description and I said, right, what do they need? Not what's in the industry, but what are they asking for? Human resources, they're asking for people who do report writing, able to speak to people. I'm a teacher. I write reports all the time for the kids. Yeah, I might not write the same reports, but I still have to run a report every quarter.
That's true. Yeah,
So make the connection. Instead of we as humans, we look for what we haven't done. I was just looking for how much of this can I tick off on this job? How much of this can I really realistically say I've actually done? I probably hit 30% of that job description, but I made that 30% look like about 80% because I was very much like, instead of saying I wrote reports for children, I just changed my CV to say report writing every quarter. One-on-one meetings with the consumer, the customer, which was the parent. Like I just had I had one-on-one meetings all the time with the parent. I had to speak to people at different levels, social services. Just talking about like, instead of saying like Ofsted, I would say third parties. Just rewording what I was doing, never lying, but because that's who it is. It's a third party, right? It's a third party from my company. So I'm dealing with third parties. I'm dealing with outside organizations. I don't have to be industry specific and say, I'm dealing with Ofsted or I'm dealing with social services. I'm dealing with outside organizations trying to come to what I call like just rewording. And that's what was my biggest thing, learning to reword. And not be industry specific. Take out the industry words. Take out children. Take out parents. And don't get me wrong, I didn't take it out everywhere, but I took it out. Changing my job titles.
Okay.
Like, it doesn't have to say nursery manager. I can just say manager.
That's true. Like, you are still a manager. Yeah, it's just not there. Like you said,
organizational manager. Yeah. Like, you want someone to look at your CV and yes, they're still going to call you and ask you what you did. And then when they called me and asked me what you did, I was like, well, yeah, I'm a teacher. And they were like, something about your CV is really intriguing. We want to know more. Okay. I just wanted to get in the room. And the thing is, of course, there was probably hundreds of people that saw my CV and didn't shortlist me. I had 2 people that did, went to those interviews and did what I needed to do at the interview. Showed them why I thought what I already had would be good where they are. Okay. It's your job when you're changing industry to connect the dots for someone because they're not going to see it. But once I got in the room, I was like, well, if I'm in the room, there must be something they saw that they want. I carried on from there.
Okay.
Had the conversation, said to them, this is why you got me in this room. And they were like, but why do you think as a teacher you're going to be able to be good in recruitment? And I was like, well, this reason and this reason. They were like, okay, what makes you think you'd be good at like selling, for instance? I was like, parents come every day. I got to convince a parent to come to my nursery versus going to the one around the corner. Yeah. Look for the evidence. And I think that's what it is. People will say, oh, but you just worked in nurseries. No. Every other day I had a parent doing a show round and my nursery was one of the most expensive ones. I'm having to convince them why I come here and pay all this money rather than go down the road and pay all the other money. If that's not sales, I don't know what is. Yeah. But you wouldn't think of it like that if you were thinking of Main Street corporate. If you're in the corporate world, you would never think of that. Even now when I go for interviews, people look at my CV and be like, how have you made this transition? Because I'm still not qualified in human resources. And I've been a HR manager. I've been all the way up to director level and people are like, how? And I'm like, because once you get in, you will keep working and let your experience build on itself. Yeah. And you'll get to a point where they'll say either a degree or 5 years in human resuresources. I'm at the point where we're almost 15 years in. Wow. So they're not who's asking me for a degree now? Who's going to ask me now for a degree? They're going to say, what's your credentials? Wow. And I'm going to say to you, what are my credentials at this point? And it's just starting small, get in the room. And when I got my first job, I knew that I needed 2 years experience to be able to leverage that because I'd looked at HR jobs and they were like, if you've got 2 years in recruitment, it's easier to transition into human resources. Okay. So in my mind, recruitment wasn't the end goal. It was like, okay, I need to do this for 2 years. I did it for about 18 months, leveraged and went into human resources as a generalist.
Wow. You say as a generalist?
Yeah, like a HR generalist. Okay. Yeah, like a human resources generalist. And then from there, leveraged that and moved up.
And then just kept on moving up to director level.
Yeah. And also another thing that I did, and I should have said this as well, when I was first looking for human resources jobs, I looked for HR in the industry that I'd already been in. So I've already been in childcare. So I looked for schools and places that would need someone who does human resources. So I looked for education places or people that did recruitment in the education sector. Because then I could sell that I can do education. All you got to do now is teach me a little bit of recruitment. So sometimes it's easy to switch industries if you use where you already are. Like I've had someone come to me who wanted to get into tech, but they was in retail. I was like, okay, so find tech companies that make stuff for retail and then sell your retail side then you can get into the tech. And they were like, oh, because you tell them I'm your customer, let me come on the other side so I can teach you how to speak to me If that makes sense. Like, if you're,
it's
so
true.
that's what, So that's what I did. Yeah,
Okay.
that was something I did. I didn't, the first job I took wasn't in
Yeah.
childcare. It was in recruitment, but it was in health and social care, like healthcare, which is like nurses and stuff,
Still
which is
similar.
really similar. So I got into that. And then after that, since then I've done like marketing recruitment, but it was leveraging the first place to move to the next place. It's about doing things in chunks.
That's crazy. Wow. Like, you said so much. I'm just trying to unpack the genius in it. Wow. No, it's actually crazy. Wow. Connecting the dots, staying in the same industry, technically, if you want to kind of switch jobs, and kind of like you said, like if you're going from, because it's true, like even when you go into certain industries, they're always like, the way I see it, they're always like connected to other industries. They're not like, no industry is like by itself.
It's not silent.
right?
It's not single, right?
Yeah. It's multifaceted in a way. So, I never thought about it that
like
way.
if you're in HR now and you want to get into marketing, see if you can get into the marketing in your current company.
Yeah.
That's going to be so much easier than maybe going outside, and then do that for 6 months and then leverage that experience and go outside.
Yeah. That is...
Move roles before you move
epic.
industries. It's actually easier to move a role than it is to move industry.
That is epic. Okay, cool. I could talk to you all day about your career. Well, I think we're going to have to definitely do a part 2 because, look, I've got so many questions that I've got to ask you about, like, income. And so when people apply for jobs, right, you get the whole, you being on the other side, some applications, they'll ask you for, like, salary expectations. What are, like, kind of the rules for navigating that?
First and foremost, research.
Okay.
Don't just be picking random numbers out of thin air, guys. Research. Glassdoor exists for a reason. LinkedIn exists for a reason. Indeed exists for a reason. I always say to my clients, sense check what you're doing. So go on to at least 3 different sources. Don't use one source. Don't just say Glassdoor said this and that's it. No. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, Indeed. That's 3 sources. On those 3 sources, look for about a couple of roles in and around what you're looking for and see what the average is. Yeah. Consider the average, then consider your experience, and then also talk to people in the industry. Do you know how much people will tell you, not their exact salary, but they'll say to you, like, I had someone who was a HR manager and she was like to me, oh, I think I should be on this. And I was like, nah, go and have conversations on LinkedIn. And she did. She came back and she was like, I'm 15K under what I should be asking for. I said, absolutely. She's now 25K jumped on salary just because of those conversations. She went and spoke to people, reached out to people on LinkedIn and was like, I'm going for this role. I've got this type of experience. What sort of money should I be asking for? And people in the industry told her. That's how you get the information. Now you put that on the application because you're not taking a number from thin air. You're more likely in that case to be in the right range or to be where you need to be. And if you've spoken to people, you'll probably be towards the top end rather than towards the bottom end. Yeah. So that's what I would say when you have to write the amount.
Is that what you did for yourself?
100%. That's what I did in my recent change when I just changed again last year, April. I was like, did my research, came out. And actually, if I'm honest with you guys, and hopefully my boss ain't listening, but I should have asked for more because the money I asked for, they gave it to me. And I was like, wait, you gave me that money too quickly and too
So if it's
easily.
too quick, you need to ask for. If they're like, okay.
And the thing was, I negotiated because I had an amount. And then after the interview process, I was like, actually, I feel for this role, I think I should be on a little bit more. So I asked for a bit more. They came back the same day. I said, wait. So guys, even me as a career coach could have got more for my part-time job that I'm doing. I was like, wait, I could have got a bit more money. But hey, I really enjoy what I do. I've got good annual leave. Everything's good. So, but yeah, like sometimes but that's what you do. You research. You research and you put your number down. And also, before you put your number down, be comfortable with that number. Be comfortable that if someone can't pay you that, why would you want to be there? Yeah. People always ask me all the time, like, oh, what if I put too much money down? Is it too much or is it what you want? Is it what you're worth? Because if you say to me you're worth 70K, but they only want to pay you 50, why do you want to be in that room? And that's the question I think you have to ask yourself more than anything. Why do you want to be in that room if they are not able to pay you what you want to? Because if you start behind, you will always feel behind.
That is true. You know, now that you're saying it like that, you know what? It's because people feel like, I think it's a mindset thing. And I have to say it because I feel like this too. Like, I'm not going to act like I don't. Like, I think that people have a certain number in mind. They want to say it, but they feel like, like you say.
What if it's too much?
Yeah, what if it's too much? Like, what if I get rejected?
And that's
you know,
why you
maybe I
gotta
don't feel like,
like,
I deserve it.
and that's why
you know,
you've got to do that research.
Yeah.
That's why you got to ask those people, because
Yeah.
you will be thinking you're asking for too much. And what if someone tells you you're asking for too much? Because that happens. That happened to me before. They said, for your experience, you're asking for way too much money. But if you've done your research, you
Yeah.
will start to realize that's one company, one person, one conversation. Just like with me in my career, that one conversation could have stopped me going into recruitment, but
Yeah.
it didn't. So you could go into an interview and you might put that amount on and they might not interview you because you put a salary that was too high. But a lot of companies, when you see like that they advertise, then the job goes down, and then you see a couple months later the job goes back up. Usually that's a budget issue because they didn't shortlist the people that wanted more, and then they realized that the talent that they interviewed wasn't at the level that they wanted. So then they have to go back out to the market anyway.
Okay. Is
So
that what happens?
always consider that happens a lot. From my perspective, knowing it from the other side, happens a lot. So sometimes when you see a job, then it suddenly goes down. There's two reasons. Either they went out to market, they did the whole interview process, didn't get what they wanted, or they went out to market, found someone at the level they wanted, the person started, didn't work out, now they've had to go back out to market. So when you see a job that's, you know, like sometimes you see a role and then it goes away, and then 2 months later you're like, wait, they're recruiting for that same position again in that same company. What's going on over there? Like, that's usually the reason.
Okay. Wow. That's mad. So do those rules, obviously, do they apply for like, because sometimes obviously on the other side, sometimes you don't get asked that question and then you're getting into interviews where they're going to ask you the question, you know, obviously those rules apply, but is there anything extra that you have to you're like face to face?
If they don't have the salary advertised, I hate jobs that don't have the salary advertised, or at least the
don't,
range.
though.
Like, exactly. And that's the problem. The reason why, because there isn't a range. There's going to be people working in the same department on two massively different salaries doing the exact same job. That's why the salary is not advertised. Yeah. Because then the people that work there are going to be like, why are you advertising my job that high and I don't even get paid that much? So what you should do is say to them, so I just wanted to know, what's the budget for this role? You can actually ask that. Absolutely.
I've never asked that in my career.
You can ask that. If they've not put the salary anywhere on the job description, I do not suggest you ask it.
I have asked before.
I don't suggest you ask him right at the beginning of the call. You know when someone calls you and says, hi, we saw that you applied for this, and you're like, oh, how much is it? Don't do that, guys.
Imagine that, right?
That's happened to me.
How much is it?
Listen, I've been doing this job for such a long time. Trust me, that's happened. They've been like, it wasn't on the job description, so I need to know how much it is before we carry on the conversation.
Wow.
I'm gonna tell you how much it is, but I'm not interested in even having the conversation with you at this point. I'm gonna finish the conversation, but I already know we're not gonna talk any further because it comes across wrong. Even though, yes, we all care about money. Like, I'm the one who's gonna tell you need to care about money, but there's a way to finesse everything in life. Yeah. You wouldn't walk up to someone in the street and just be like, oh, where'd you live? Give me your address. I want to be your best friend. Like, that's not how you don't start you start a conversation with a little finesse, innit? Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. I want people to do the same when they ask. But yeah, ask, what's the budget? Okay. What is the budget? What are you thinking of paying for this role? I've seen that in the market, and that's why your research helps you. I've seen in the market, this type of role is about 100K. Looking at the roles and responsibilities, and now that we've had this chat, I'm thinking that, it should be, I'm looking at it, and depending on what you need, it could be this or it could be that. And sometimes don't even put a number out there. Just say, like, what is the budget for this role? And let them speak. Yeah. And if the budget is lower than you want, then that's a point for you to decide where you want to go from there. Because you can still negotiate. Yeah. Even if it's lower than what, like, you can ask for more. It's not that you can't. Okay. But get them to put the number out there first. And then you can then, from that point, decide. Because what if they put a number out that was way higher than you was even thinking of asking? That's true. You could have gone in there saying you want 70K, and then they're like, oh, the budget for this role is between 80 and 95. Now you're like, oh, so I'm looking for 90. Like, you see how your whole mindset changed because you went in thinking it was only 70. And if you'd put your number out first, they would have been happy because now they're getting good talent for less money. Yeah. So. That is true. Wow. So how do you open the negotiation? Say like it's less than what the budget is, less than what you have in mind. How do you kind of like negotiate that? It would really depend. Like, if I get into an interview situation, I've already interviewed and then I've realized the budget is lower, I would actually say, like, oh, based on the market value, the scope of the role and the responsibilities that you've told me since we've had this conversation, I would be looking for like 95. And imagine they've said like the top end is like 90. I'll say I would be looking for something like this role, I would be looking for more around 95. And if they were like, oh, that's way out of our budget, I know my numbers. So because I've decided my number, then I'm way out of your budget then. If I'm out of your budget, I always say this is a line I always say all the time, if it's not in the budget, I'm not in your building. And it is simple as that, but not everyone has that. And I get it. And if you don't have that, there are other things you can negotiate. Not everyone's going to say that. Some people are going to be like, you know what, I'm happy with the 90. Cool. Then what you need to say is, you would still say, do you know what, I was looking for 95, but I am really interested in your company because, give them the reasons why. I also think I can bring this to your team, give them the reasons why, and then say, so I was wondering, is there any other benefits to the staff that you offer?
Yeah.
Negotiate things like annual leave. That's one
That's
of
a
my
good
favourite
point.
ones. Annual leave is my
I've
favourite
never
one.
negotiated
That's
annual leave.
Anyone listening, that's the thing I negotiate first and
What?
foremost before I negotiate
Annual
money.
leave?
Yeah, because that's like a pay rise. When you negotiate paid annual leave, think about it. I went from having 25 days annual leave in one of my
Yeah.
jobs to 40 days paid annual leave.
You're joking.
Well, sorry, 38 days, guys. 2 days.
38. Wait,
38.
12 extra.
Yeah, I negotiated it
13
from,
extra.
Yeah, first I negotiated from 28 to 33, and then I was like from 33 to 38.
What?
Because I said to them, you don't have to give me a pay rise. I said, if you give me this amount of time, you don't have to give me a pay rise for the next. I said, I don't even want the annual pay rise, that, you know, the little 3%. I said, I won't even get the annual pay rise. I just want the annual leave. They thought they was getting a really good deal. But then when I started taking the annual leave, they was like, wait, Adele, can we renegotiate? No, it's too late now. Because I like to travel.
Yeah.
I travel like 5 to 6 times a year. So I
Wow.
want that annual leave. So I will negotiate and I will take a lower salary if it makes sense for me. There's other things. It could be like, I'm a mum, it's close to my daughter's school. Like when she was younger, that was important for me. Being able to get to work. I got shorter hours. Maybe I'm
Yeah.
working 8 till 4 instead of a
Yeah.
full day. So what else can you negotiate? Can you negotiate remote working? Like what else can you negotiate if you're going to take a smaller salary? But again, if you're going to take a lower salary, ask yourself why.
Wow,
Why?
I'm still, my mind's still blown about the annual leave. I've never done that, and I've been working. I feel like I've been finessed 10 years, and I've never ever thought
What?
about
10 years
annual
you've
leave.
never asked about annual leave?
I've never thought about it. This is why
And
we
have this
have these
conversation.
conversations.
I agree
Because I
with you.
didn't know, like, not that. No, I never thought about you can negotiate annual leave.
I think that I'm someone who will negotiate stationery if I can negotiate stationery. And I think that's where it's come from. Like my clients always say that to me. They're like, Adele, why have I never thought of negotiating annual leave? I'm like, imagine you just ask for 2 extra days and you get them, just 2. Then after that, now, but it's the same as negotiating a big salary. If
Yeah.
you've never done it, you're going to think it's not possible until you do it. And then you're like, so I could have done this the whole time.
Yeah,
I want anyone listening
that's
to know
crazy.
that I don't come from this place. I used to be underpaid and overworked before I understood how the job market really worked.
Okay, so you can negotiate annual leave. Obviously, we know you can negotiate salary. You
Annual
can
leave.
negotiate annual leave.
Sign-on bonus.
Sign on. Yes. Okay. Talk to me about that, because that's something that I don't see commonly. I've only seen it commonly for usually graduate schemes. I've seen some companies to attract people, but I've never really seen it for like.
It's a US thing. It's a
Yeah.
very US thing, and it's come to the UK in like over the years. But there are companies that are quietly doing sign-on bonuses. A lot of
Okay.
companies do sign-on bonuses. You just gotta know how to ask the questions. Do you offer a sign-on bonus? And say it. It's almost if you say it in an interview like it's normal,
Yeah.
like all the other interviews you've been at offer sign-on bonuses. If you say it, they'll be like, oh. And then you'll access sometimes parts of the hidden job market that you didn't even realize were there. But yeah, it is something that's becoming a thing here in the UK for
Okay.
talent. They're offering, but sometimes why they're offering the sign-on bonus is because the salary is not that good as
Okay,
well.
so
sometimes
okay.
it's like we'll give you the sign-on bonus so you get a bit of money to sign on, but then it's like your salary is kind of average.
Yeah.
But again, these are all things that are stepping stones to your next move. So even if that works for you in that moment, you might be like, oh, I'm gonna get the experience and the title I need for the next 6 months or year, and then I'll jump. Why not?
That makes sense. Does it like impact? You know, sometimes when companies ask, "What was your prior salary?" I never understand that. But does that have an impact?
Yes.
On. Okay,
Yes,
talk to me
because-
about that.
Say you're going for a role and you
Yeah.
want 60k, but
Yeah.
your old salary was 40k.
Yeah.
They know if they offered you 50k, you would take, because that's 10k more than you was on.
Okay.
They're not going to aim to offer you 20k more than you was on before.
Okay.
Because they feel like now they're doing you a favor. So that's why they've asked you what you're because they do. They're like, you was on
Nah,
40,
I'm doing you a
Yeah,
favour,
you was on
yeah.
40k. You're lucky. I'm giving you 50. Like that's
Yeah.
that's how companies really feel. From the other side, that's genuinely how they feel. And the reason for asking that question is, oh, if I really like this person, I can probably get them for less. And I want everyone to know, one of not human resources as a whole, but recruiters that are working for outside of the company, their job is to get you as much money as possible. Internal recruiters, the job is to save the budget of the company.
That is true.
That
yeah.
is your job. So when I was trying to save the budget of the company, if I could get top talent for less, I'm then going to go to my boss and be like, I just saved you 20k. And they're like, oh, well done, Adele. Guess what? At the end of the year, I'm asking for some of that money back in profit. Because I'm saying to them, I need a pay rise now
love
because
that.
this year I've helped you save 50k
Yeah.
in staffing. I've helped your staffing bill 100k. If I've saved you 100k, know that I, Adele, will come in to ask you for a pay rise.
Yeah. So they're incentivized to That's
yeah.
almost like their bonus.
Yeah,
right?
because it's like
Yeah.
you can go back and I'm not saying everyone
Yeah.
did that, but I know I did that because if I save you money,
Mm,
I need some of that savings. If I make a company money, I need some of that profit.
mm,
So I'm always paying attention to what a company's bottom line is doing
yeah.
because that affects me as much as how much can I negotiate and
Mm.
how much have I impacted that bottom line.
That's
So
crazy.
that's how I look at a lot of companies. You got to think we're in a corporate world,
Yeah.
capitalist. Like what the world is made up of. Companies don't want to make money in the corporate world.
Mm,
So if they're doing that, why are we not doing that for ourselves? Why are we not advocating for our pockets just like they're advocating
mm.
for theirs? Do you know what I mean?
That's crazy. You know what? It's so. This is why I like having these kind of conversations because it kind of changes your mindset to think you need to think a bit differently with some of these kind of things. So how do you navigate that then if they're asking? Because obviously, do you just say NA? Do you blanket?
See, this is a really hard one when
Yeah.
you have to and it comes down to the type of person you are. I know people that lie, flat out lie, because in the UK it's very different from like the US market and other places where they can check. Like in some states in America, they can check your salary. Like that's okay to do. Some states they're not allowed. Here, they don't call your old boss and check. So I know people that have lied, but I know people that are very uncomfortable with lying about their salary. So then in that case, I will say to them, say your salary, but make it very clear in the interview, the scope of this role is nothing like what I used to do.
Mm,
So my expectations are totally different.
yeah.
Simple as that. Just
Okay.
if you're confident saying it, then they're believing you.
So okay, so this because you said you used to do internal recruitment. So
Internal
because my
post,
next
yeah.
question was right. Say you have several candidates, right? Why
Mhm.
why don't they just go for the cheapest?
People ask me this all the time. They're
Yeah.
like, Adele, you're making people negotiate, but they're negotiating themselves out of a job. No. Let me explain to you. They
Yeah.
don't go for the cheapest. Companies need to make profit, as we just spoke about.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a cheap labor, but if you're no good, you're not going to make me any money in the
Mm.
company. If I'm a business owner, you're not going to make me any money if you're not good at your
Yeah.
job, right? So then I'm losing money because I'm paying you just to be there. We've all seen them staff that
Yeah.
are just there to be there and they don't last very long. No one wants you to be there just to be there, right?
Mm.
So what they're trying to do is get the best quality staff at the lowest price.
Okay.
So what happens is, say two people come and interview and they're both amazing. One of those people wants 100K, but one only wants 80K. But you're both interview as well as each other. You both are that good. They're going to go with the cheaper one. But what's actually happened is the cheaper one, you just undersold yourself. You gave them a discount.
Mm.
But if you both was 100K, now they have to really sit down. I've been in rooms where it's like, we like them both.
Mm.
How do we choose? Because you both want the high salary.
Yeah.
One of you is going to get the job because simply being, we want the best candidate. I'm in HR, I'm in recruitment. We want the best candidate, but at the lowest price.
Okay, so it's like a dual
Yeah.
two criteria.
So if I've got a bad candidate at a low price, I'm not going to offer the bad candidate at a low price. It makes my boss is going to then say to me, "Why did you hire this person?" I'm making myself look bad.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is trying to hire the best talent at the lowest price, and this is why I say to people, stop giving a discount to companies that never ask for it. Because you walked in and you said, "Here, let me give you a 20% discount. I'm gonna ask you for
love
this
that,
low price,"
yeah.
because you're saying, "Oh, but at least I got the job." Okay, but you got the job to be on less money, and if you went somewhere else, you'd be on more. So is it a win? Is it really a win that you can say to me, "Yeah, but I got the job"? Okay, but that 100K person just went somewhere else and got the 100K.
Yeah.
Let's be realistic. They didn't get it here, but they just went somewhere else. Because I'm that person who will be like, okay, you can't afford me. You can't afford me then. There's been situations where I might be like, oh, I'll take the job because I know why I'm taking the job. Maybe I just want a title bump for like 6 months and then I'm out the door. Because I just wanted a title bump because I knew what that title could do long term for my career.
Okay. So is that quite important then, the titles as well? Does that really help?
Depending on your industry.
Okay.
It can be really helpful.
You can leverage that.
Yeah, for someone like me who didn't have a qualification in human resources, didn't have my CIPD, when someone said to me, we'll give you a HR manager title, I jumped at the chance.
Of course,
I'm not silly.
Of course you're going to have
jumped
to, right?
at the chance. I was like, but they weren't paying me what I wanted them to pay me. So I was like, I'm not sure. Negotiated a salary, got higher than they wanted to offer me, but it still wasn't where I wanted to be. But in my mind, I was like, I'm only keeping this title for a year and I'm out.
Okay.
Within that year, though, we negotiated a bit more. So I ended up staying there 2 years and then I left. But it was very much like I wanted that title because I knew what it could do for me. From that point onwards, having that title changed everything for me.
Mad. Wow. I feel like what we did, 38 minutes. I've learned so much. Like I feel like my mind's been blown so many times. I'm like, I feel like I've been finessed.
Listen,
and I'm sure there
we've
must be
all
people...
been finessed. We've all been finessed.
Yeah.
Like, I've been in jobs where I found out that people I was training were on 10K more than me. And I'd asked for a 5K pay rise at the time and they were like, no, it's too much. But I'm training people who are on 10 and £15,000 more than me. Why am I training
That's mad. Nah.
So imagine finding that out. You're training these people. You've
Yeah.
asked for a pay rise. They've told you no, and you're still working away.
Yeah.
And then these people are getting more than me. And it's
Yeah.
things like that have changed my view. And
Okay.
things like that help push me to be like, ask for more.
Yeah. You got to just advocate for
Ask
yourself.
for what you want.
Yeah.
Ask for what you deserve. And when people
Yeah.
say to me, oh, but what if you don't, you shortchange yourself? Like where I said to you, like I asked for a job and they gave me it so quickly. I was like, I could have probably got more. But because it's what I really wanted, that's how much I wanted for this job. As much as I'm like, I probably could have got more, I don't feel bad because I advocated for what I wanted.
Yeah.
I did my research. I looked up. I advocated for what I wanted. So I think that's important. Knowing your number,
Yeah.
advocating for what you want, not letting everyone get in your ear like, oh, you're going to lose the job because you asked for too much. Why wouldn't they get the cheaper candidate? Because if the cheaper candidate's no good, you're going to run their business into the ground.
Yeah.
Nobody wants poor labour. The thing that's really important is, are you interviewing at the level of the money you're asking for?
Okay.
Because sometimes people's asking for 70k, but you're interviewing at 30k. That doesn't make sense. Because me from the other side, I'm like, what? I just saw a candidate. I saw a candidate who wanted 50k, who interviewed better than you. And I know a lot of people, like, I'm going to be talking about this, but people will say, yeah, but some people are really good at their job and not good at interviews. I agree. But no one will know you're good at your job unless you're become good at interviews. So anything you're not good at, you can become good at. That's my belief. Like anything you're not good at, you can become good at it. Because imagine you're a great worker, but you're constantly in jobs where you're underpaid or you're not getting the best opportunities because you don't know how to sell yourself.
Yeah. It sounds like that's what it's about. It's about advocating and being good at selling yourself. But how does one become good at that? That's the question, right?
Confidence. I think selling is in every walk of life. I think being able to problem solve and sell your skills.
Yeah.
Everyone needs that. It doesn't matter what walk of life you're in because people don't see interviews as selling themselves. But what do you think that is? You're going in a room and selling your potential. These people don't know you. You're walking in a room and saying, pick me out above all these 10 people.
That's true.
That's sales.
Yeah.
That is always going to be sales. But sales comes from being confident in yourself. I think with my clients, the thing I work on with them is pinpointing your best qualities and then selling that into a job versus a lot of people look at the job description and say like, oh, have I got this strength or have I got this strength? No, you should already know your strengths. I know the 3 things I'm great at. Then I look at the job and I tell the person how I'm going to use those 3 things in their job.
I love that.
So I think it's a confidence thing.
Yeah.
But it's very much about being you, yourself. Like, I don't like generic, like saying to people, oh, everyone should be able to do this or everyone should be able to do this. Nah, like my coaching program's called Create Your Own Lane for a reason because you should be doing it based on your strengths. I don't have any 2 clients that have the exact same strengths. So we learn how to sell their strengths into what they want to do.
Yeah.
Because if you are talking about something that's genuinely, like if you know you are so good at communicating, when I then say to you, let's form some interview answers around communicating, you feel better automatically because you're like, oh, I'm not making it up. I actually am really good at this thing. Yeah, let's sell that then. Yeah. That's what selling is. People always think sales is like making stuff up. No, sell what you've got. What are you good at? Let's talk about it and figure it out.
You're right. It's about maximizing who you are, who you are, right?
Yeah.
And just maximizing that and make sure that shines through, right?
Yeah. You're much more comfortable in an interview when you're selling what is real, what feels real to you and feels comfortable to you.
Okay, so we talked about obviously the interview and, demonstrating to your potential employer, what makes you stand out. Are there things that you should avoid saying in an interview?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Do not badmouth your old employer.
Okay.
Do not say nothing negative about, even if you hated that job, I want you to say it was a great place to work, but I feel like my skills and talents could be developed further elsewhere, or I feel like I have more to bring in this area and that role doesn't allow for that. But not, my boss is an idiot, I hate it here, I will never work here again. Like, don't say negative things. Even if the people are really nice in the interview and like they come across really friendly, be careful not to overstep the mark. And always remember you're still in an interview situation, no matter how nice someone is. I've seen people interview really well and then get a little bit too comfortable and like maybe swear in the interview or because they've just got a little bit too comfortable because the interview was really chilled and really nice. And then they've put the person off because the person's been like, all right, you got a bit over familiar. So just be careful. Remember you're in an interview situation. Do not, like I said, do not badmouth your old employer.
Sounds like you heard that a lot. Oh my God.
The badmouth of the old employer. Say, that happens a lot all the time. Like, I've heard that a lot over my career. Like a lot of people badmouthing. So that's like my top one. Do not badmouth the last employer at all. Don't be scared in an interview to ask someone to repeat themselves either.
Okay.
I think sometimes people think you shouldn't do that, but actually you should. Like if you're not sure of a question, you should ask that. I'm trying to think what else you shouldn't do in an interview. I think the other things you really shouldn't do in an interview is focus too much on like saying like, oh, but if you train me, I'll be able to do it. If you train me, I'll be able to do it. It's okay to say that you need to be trained, but what are you giving them in return? I think it's always important to talk about the value you'll bring versus, okay, what can you give me? What can you give me? What can you give me? Because when we get to negotiation, that's what can you give me? But I've already going to show you all the things I can give you. So then when I come to negotiate, it doesn't feel too one-sided. So be really careful of that as well.
Yeah. I love that. I love those points. Love those points, especially the bad mouthing one.
Just don't do it.
Gosh, what is? Come on, people. You can hate the last job, but don't share it. So at the end as well, you also get a chance to like ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
Should candidates always ask questions?
They should.
They should.
They should ask questions.
What's the top question they should ask?
There's no generic questions that you should ask. Again, like I said earlier, I don't believe one size necessarily fits all, because what I need from a job might not be what you need from a job. You need to ask questions based on what you need from a job. So I personally do not like to be micromanaged, and not even just micromanaged. I don't even like to be closely managed. I just don't need it. I need you to tell me what my job is and go away.
Yeah.
When I need you, I'll come and find you. Whereas I know people that say to me, I don't like to be micromanaged, Adele, but I do need a manager who checks in regularly. We're going to ask totally different questions.
Okay.
We need to ask totally different questions.
Yeah.
A good question to ask in any job interview is like, why do you like working here? I love asking people that because it puts them on the spot, and also you get an impression from the person immediately if they like it there or not. Because when you ask the interviewer, like, what's made you be here as long as you have been here? They'll either be like, what? Like, and they'll be like, you'll see it in their face, like, oh my God, I hate it here, but I'm gonna have to make up a story. Or they'll be like, oh, I love it here. I ask people often, like, what's your management style? And then I ask, how do you like to be managed? That's usually a telltale. Someone will tell you their management style, but then when you ask them, oh, how do you like to be managed? They kind of will reflect how they really manage.
Okay.
So that's important to me. These are questions that are important to me, by the way. Like, I'm giving you examples of what's important to me. A good question for anyone to ask is, what would you expect from a candidate that got this job? What would you expect them to achieve in the first 3 to 6 months? Okay. Anyone should be asking that. Yeah. Because then when they tell you that, if they tell me what they want me to achieve in the first 6 months, I'll achieve it in the first 3. Because then at 6 months, I'm asking you for a pay rise. And I'm keeping it real. That's
what I'm saying. Wait, asking for pay rise within 6 months? People do that?
Yeah, when I changed industry, I got a pay rise in the first 5 weeks. It was 4.5 weeks. I'll never forget that.
What is this?
Do you take a year to get good at your job?
No.
Do you not get good at your job every day?
Okay. We're getting to that. Let me let you finish this part, then we'll get to that.
But yeah, those are the questions.
Crazy.
So that question I feel like everyone should ask. Everyone should be asking, like, what's the expectations? Because it will give you a better viewpoint of what the expectations is. I like to ask, like, how often are people expected to stay and do overtime? No, how often do people stay and do overtime? I ask it really casually, really easy, because then they think like, oh, she doesn't mind overtime. No, I just want you to tell me the truth. Yeah. So I'll be like, oh, like, because what if you're someone who doesn't want to do overtime? Well, that's not for you. You need to ask those questions. What is the culture that you're looking for at work? What's the dynamic you're looking for? I think we miss red flags because we don't ask questions specific to us. Yeah. We go on Google and Google says, ask these questions. Those questions you don't even care about those questions, so why are you asking them? So we get very specific. What is it that you need from a job? Like non-negotiables, and ask those questions. Like, I need a manager who isn't on my back and breathing down my neck. I need someone who has a style that's very relaxed. I know other people that doesn't work for them. So you need to be asking those questions. I need companies that have a little bit more flexibility with time. Yeah. So I'll be like, is your start times and your end times really rigid? That's a question I would ask. But that might not be a question that someone else cares to ask because it doesn't work for them. Yeah. So I think it's very specific. You need to have a list of what are your negotiables and your because some people you have things that you can negotiate and then non-negotiables. Your question should be based around your non-negotiables.
Okay. Love that. Epic. I love that. So obviously you delved a little bit into like the other side of it, and I know it's different for every company, but I guess from your experience, when you mentioned a few of it, when you're looking at like what candidates to choose, what were some of the things that you were actually looking at from them, like to say, okay, yeah, that's the right candidate?
Well, after interview or at the CV? After interview. So we've done the interview.
Yeah. Actually, let's talk about both. Let's talk about CVs and interviews, because I think it's important to know. I know CVs is ever changing. We've got ChatGPT, but just generally speaking, so people have like an idea of
CVs. What I'm looking for is how well have you shown that you're the solution to the job description. Job description is the problem basically the company has that they need help with. I'm going to look at your CV and see how quickly I can identify that information. The top third of your CV is the most important part. Get the information there. And I don't mean cram information in. I just mean try and hit at least 3 of the points that are in the job description in that top third. Because as a recruiter, when they say online, you got 6 seconds, you really do. I see hundreds of CVs. I don't have time to read your whole CV. If all the good stuff's at the bottom, you probably ended up in my no pile, not because you was a no, but because I got this far, halfway down, what I needed to see wasn't there. So that's really important on your CV side of things.
Perfect.
In the interview side of things, it's about contribution.
Okay.
What can you contribute to a company? I would generally say, can you show how you can save a company money or make a company money? Have you talked in there about how you've trained or upskilled people or shown that, demonstrated that throughout your CV? And have you shown how you've made systems better or more efficient?
Yeah.
If you fall into one of those 4 things in your interview, people are going to be interested because it all comes back down to bottom line. Talk about how you've helped increase customer base, how you've helped retain current customers, how you've increased revenue, how you've saved money. Like my job interview started, the quality of the jobs I started to be able to interview for changed when I put at the top of my CV that I took a company from making 32,000 a year to 841,000. Now I did that over a certain period, but in 1 year we cleared that was a company when I started 32,000 for the whole year. When I was leaving, we was almost at the £1 million mark. When I put that near the top of my CV, I promise you the rooms I got into were a bit bigger and better.
Wow.
The salaries I got, because now I'm showing the value I could bring to you. What company is not going to say like, wait, I just want to interview her to see how she did it. Even if you don't want to offer me the job, you're going to give me access to the room because you're going to be like, how did she do it? So what are you talking about in an interview? Is what you're talking about what they care about? Sometimes we go in an interview and we start talking about our qualifications and we start talking about all these great things we've done, but we stop to think, do they care? When you read their job description, did they say anything about qualifications? If they didn't, why are you talking about it? They didn't ask.
Facts.
They didn't ask. So just be really conscious. Like look at the job description and say like, they care about, like in some human resources jobs, they want you to be really people focused. If that's what they want me to be, I'm going to talk more about the stuff I've done around people. I'm not going to be talking about money and all that stuff. I'm going to be like, well, when it came to people, I was able to retain more staff. The turnover went down. I'm not going to be talking about money. I'm going to be talking about I reduced turnover, which in turn saved them money if you reduce turnover. But I don't need to talk about that because they're people focused. If I go to a job and they're really target focused and money focused, I focus on how I've hit targets, how I've made money, how I've overachieved, how I've gone above and beyond, and like I surpassed deadlines. Like you know things like that. Like I'm deadlines over here and I hit that way before my deadline. Like I'm talking about those things versus going in there and talking about people because that's not what they care about. So I think sometimes we go in and we have a general view, like every human resources job's going to be the same. Every like tech job's going to be the same. No, some specific companies want specific things. What do they care about? Talk about that. Talk more about when you've done that. And I think sometimes that's hard for us as humans. We want to talk about everything.
That's the thing, right? We just want to, but I feel like when you become more experienced, you're better at summarizing, you're better at just hitting certain points. It's not about just word vomit.
And I think that's really important what you just said. You get better at summarizing.
Yeah.
And when you get good at summarizing, it's because you're able to pick out the information that matters and you summarize it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas when you're not, you just talk about everything. And sometimes the answer gets lost in that long conversation versus, oh, you want to know how I've helped people in my career.
Yeah.
Let me tell you about all the things I've helped people.
Wow, this is crazy. Okay, so I want to definitely talk about this because you mentioned it. 5 weeks into pay rise. Okay. First of all, how did you do this?
This is not common, guys. Okay. Like, but it's
even
always
6
possible.
months in. I just want to know, like, what's the process for it? Because that's
the setup from the beginning. But you have to be thinking about this at interview stage. Like when you're asking, what do you expect? On day one, when I go into a job, I'm like, what do you expect me to achieve in the first 6 months of this job? They tell me X, Y, Z. I'll be like, okay, what would look really good to you? What would make you really happy? I'm then gonna aim to hit those things in the first 3 months.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to go to my boss and be like, oh yeah, I know we spoke about it in the first 6 months, but I've been able to achieve them. Like, so what next? What would you like me to do next? Now my boss is like, wow, she works really fast. She's really good. Like, because it's quality as well, not just speed, it's quality. Then it's going to be like, oh, okay. So now I'm doing the next set of things. So now I've achieved Q4 things in Q2. If you think I'm not coming to ask you for a pay rise, and the worst thing someone's going to say to me is no, Adele, but I'm still going to ask. It's a yes or a no, right? So 6 months in, I'm going to be like, well, you said at 6 months you'd expect me to do this. I was doing that at 3 months. At 6 months, I've now done double what you was expecting someone to do at 6 months. So, and when I come for a negotiation, I'm asking from a point of, I've been able to bring this to you.
Yeah.
If you keep me on, I'm going to do this for the next 6 months. So now I'm expecting slightly higher money. I expect more money. The way I did it in my other job as well is, why are we not negotiating pay rises into our contract? They offered me a salary that I didn't think was great. It was good, but it wasn't great. It could be better. And I said to them, okay, what's the quickest someone can get a pay rise? And they were like, to be honest, it's a year, but sometimes 6 months. And I was like, I am really interested in this job. I think I can bring a lot to the role, but can we discuss putting in a salary negotiation at 8 weeks? And they said, oh, but you'd have to hit this. I said, fine, can we write it into the contract? They said, yeah, we wrote it into the contract.
Okay, so you write the stuff
but
in the contract.
I hit those things within 4 weeks. So I stepped up and said, and my
Wow.
boss was like, you don't even need to ask. She was like, you got
Wow.
it. But I asked for it to be built into the contract. And I've had people ask me that. People come to me and say, because the salary is lower than what I want, but I really want to work for this company, would you consider a 12-week salary negotiation, like a salary review? And I'll be like, okay, let me go away, talk to the powers that be and come back. And we've come back and been like, yeah, we can add that into your contract.
Okay.
But again, you know the level, like you have to be great at your interview. They have to really want you to be able to negotiate these things. I'm not saying every job you can go and just be like, oh, can I negotiate this into the contract? They will look at you strange. They'll be like, what? But there are many jobs where you can actually say, I'm really interested in working here, but where the salary is a little bit lower than I want, is there room for at 12 weeks, we can have a salary review? And if they say, yeah, they're going to then say to you, but you would need to do this, this, and this. I've had people get promised it and it not happen. That's why I say ask them to write it into your contract or at least into your offer letter.
Yeah, verbal offers, no
Never
good.
trust a verbal
Yeah,
offer. Because I've had people say to me, Adele, they promised within 4 months they would review my salary. It's been a year. I'm like, but you had a verbal. You have to prove it. How do you prove it now? You was in a room with 2 other people from that company. They're not going to agree that that happened. So
that's crazy.
now you're stuck. Like, so yeah, just ask them to write it in. If they agree it, ask them to write it in your offer or write it. So you've got it in writing. It comes across to you. And then at that 12, and again, they can say no. Like anyone listening, that like it is a yes or a no. I'm not saying at 12 weeks, they might say to you, well, we wanted you to hit this and you missed 2 of them. No. Then you got to wait for the next one. Yeah. And you got to be genuine with yourself. Did you hit what they asked you to hit? Are they taking the mick out of you, or actually did you not meet the criteria? That's fair enough. Let's be real. But if you meet it and then they still say no, ask why. And I think this is the thing, people at work were scared to challenge. Ask why. If I've met all the targets that you told me to meet, why am I not getting the pay rise? And then it's like, and then say to them, okay, when can we sit down again and review it? And if you ask why and they're just like, the company's just not making money, but you know that the company's made a profit. Again, this is why you need to be in your company's business. You need to know, like, what are they doing? How much are they turning over in the quarter? Look at the stock market if your company's traded like that. Like, understand what your company's doing. If they're like, there's just no money in the pot, and there genuinely is no money in the pot, then that's your cue. Are you staying or are you going? Yeah. And sometimes you're going to stay and you're going to weather the storm because you love it where you are. That's fine. But if it's like, no, I had a plan and I want this money, I want to get a mortgage or I want to do these things, then think about what you want to do and make a decision.
Amazing. And is there like a certain amount of money that's reasonable to ask for? Because some people obviously want like the 10 to 20K increases. Is that really possible as a pay rise within a company?
I got a 15K pay rise to do the same job in the same company at the end of 2021. I talk about it. It's all on my Instagram. You lot can go and look at it. You can see it. My boss knew that I posted it because I was like, I'm going to talk about it. For me, I had been at the job for like 7 or 8 years at that point in the same company. That's the longest job I'd ever had. Yeah. And what had happened was, when you're in the company, you stop doing research. And I realized I hadn't researched for a long time. And I just sat down one day and started researching the market and researching them. And I was like, wait, Adele, you're like 10 to 15K out. Because I've been here so long, getting pay rises, negotiating annual leave, negotiating days off. I'd forgotten to look at the market. So when you're in a job, the problem that happens is, a lot of people will know this. You've been in a job and someone gets hired from outside and for some reason they're on hire. But when you're in the job, you take the little pay rises, you enjoy the job. You don't realize the money. But actually, if 8 years have gone past, maybe I haven't been asking for the right pay rises. Yeah. And I realized, and I was like 15K out, and I went and had the conversation, and I was very much like, I'm this much out, market value wise, and I actually make you guys a lot of money, and I do X, Y, Z, and I've grown the teams, so I want to have this conversation. And the first answer I got was like, not that much, Adele. It's not going to happen. What if we did like half now and half a year from now? And I said, listen, I'll happily take it, but I'm just going to let you know I'm going to be looking at my options in the market. And they was very much like, okay. They came back to me like within a couple of days because, listen, it is cheaper to keep someone and pay them more than it is to advertise. Hope that the new person's going to be good. Retrain. This is if you've been in your job for a long time. Remember, I'm saying 8 years here. If you've been in the same company 5 years, they know how good you are. Do you know how much it costs them to advertise on all these platforms to do the interview, and then they're hoping that person's going to now come in and be as good as you? If you've created a situation where you're an asset, no one can be bothered to try and replace you. So then they're just like, you're not irreplaceable. I just want people to know, listen to this, you are not irreplaceable. We can all be replaced. But just knowing where you stand in your company is really helpful, because then you're like, it's easier to negotiate. But do I think that's the norm and I think everyone can do that all the time? No, but one of my last clients, who's now in Dubai, got herself a 12k pay rise because her company thought they were going to lose her.
Okay.
But she put herself in a position where they thought they was going to lose her. I tend to help people. The people I work with tend to go for the 20 and the 20 and the 30k pay rises. That is usually easier when you go outside of your job. Yeah. The massive pay rises like the 30k. That's when you leave your job. But within your job, do I think you can get 10k pay rises? Absolutely. Do I think you can get 15? Absolutely. But let's be realistic. How good are you at your job? If you're the person who is like, I'm doing the bare minimum to hold on to this job, please don't think that you're going to get a 10k pay. Yeah. If you're a top performer, if you're a high achiever, if you're making your company a lot of money, then why is it not reasonable for you to ask for 10k? Because I promise you, when they advertise for your job and they go out to market and they realize they can't get someone at your price, they're going to advertise the job higher than you're currently on. That happens so often.
Wow. That has been such a great conversation. I think I need to get you in for part 2 because like there's a lot of other questions that I want to defo cover. I guess I'm just thinking, just to wrap us up, in terms of what are some of like the valid and not valid reasons for, you know, asking for a pay rise?
Okay, not valid. Yeah. I've been here many years.
Okay.
Guys, you can go on any of my social media and I talk about this all the time. Being in the building is not a reason to get a pay rise. You might be a seat warmer who is not that great. It is not. Don't ever start off your salary negotiation. Oh, cost of living. Your company doesn't care. I'm being really honest with you. Like, your company is not your family. They don't care on that level. Some companies do. Some of us work for great companies, but most companies are not going to negotiate. You shouldn't be going in talking about, I don't know, my kids' things at school are really expensive or stuff like that. You should be going in from a point of, I have helped you do X, Y, Z. I'm just asking for this in return.
Okay, I like that.
It's an even trade. It's not
even trade.
It's not I've been here for years. Okay, that's nice. What have you done in those years? I always say to my clients, when you're asking for a negotiation, ask yourself, why does it matter? Every time you ask a question, like say, I'm going in for a negotiation. If you say to someone, I've been here for years. Okay, why does that matter?
That's very true. What have you done?
Ask yourself why it matters. What have I done in those years?
Yeah. It's not about the 5 years, because you could have done nothing in 5 years.
You can have
you could have done a lot in 5 years.
Right, you can have two people that have done 5 years. Yeah. One done double what the other one did. Do you see what I'm saying? So why does it matter? Ask yourself that before you go into a negotiation. When I'm going into this negotiation, if I say to them, oh, last year I helped you save 1.3 million, let's say, on staffing. Okay, why does that matter? Connect the dot for them. Say to them, so because of that, that's helped do this. So I was wondering if we could talk about a pay rise.
Okay. Wow.
But have an even trade, not what have I contributed? Why does that contribution deserve more money? Versus, oh, I just want more money because I want more money. I think some people think that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm just like, go and ask for loads of money. No, because what's my justification? That's the key. What's your justification? Yeah. What have you given them why the pay rise is justified? What have you given them why they should give you more annual leave? Like, when I negotiated less days, it was because I was saying, I'm still productive here 4 days a week. You're still getting the same amount of return off of me. So why do we need me in the building 5 days? Yeah. And they were like, oh, but Adele, everyone works 5 days. And I was like, okay, can we trial it? And they were like, okay. I was like, I'll 100% go back to 5 days if it doesn't work. They said, okay, let's trial it. That trial turned into permanent 4 days a week and I didn't lose money on my salary. But it's because I posed it like, I will go back. I didn't just pose like, give me. I was like, I will still be productive. If by any reason something goes wrong or it goes down, I'll be back in the office 5 days. I made sure I wanted those 4 days, right? So I made sure that nothing went down, things went up. I did better because I was like, I want to keep these 4 days, so I need to be able to prove it. And I think that's where people don't always understand. When I'm saying advocate for yourself, really advocate, but have your evidence. Write down your wins, keep track of them, so that when it comes to time to negotiate, because I'm telling you, when you come to negotiate, you'll forget all the things that you've done over the year. Who remembers all the things they've done? Write it down. Like, I have a big list of all the things I do. Every time someone's like, oh, we couldn't have done this without you, write it down. Because when it comes to the end of the year and I'm asking for the money and you're asking me why, I'm like, oh, do you remember this? One time my boss was like, Adele, the list is too long. Because I just kept going. And he was just like, okay, where are we meeting? Where are we meeting in the middle? Because he was tired because I had the list ready. I was like, right, wow. And I tend to send an email before I do my meeting. Yeah. So I'll send a long email. yeah, the introvert in me wants you to see what I want to talk to you about first. So
Yeah.
I set the stage and then I'll have the conversation.
Wow, amazing. Oh my God, like I've taken so much from you today. It's like my mind is so blown. I'm not even gonna say we definitely need to do a part 2, because I know I'm gonna get so many comments, so many questions, and there's so many other areas I want to definitely explore with you. Thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. Where can people find you if they want to, obviously get in touch with
Oh, they
you
can find
and
me
things?
at my podcast as well,
Mhm.
5 for 2
Yeah.
careers, all career related. Anyone who's trying to change career or make some more money, meet me over there. Also, you can find me on the LinkedIn, Adelle Thompson, and then TikTok and Instagram. I mostly hang out on LinkedIn, to be honest, and I make videos and stuff on TikTok and Instagram. So yeah, reach out, send me a DM. In my coaching program, I currently help people change careers and add 5 figures to their salary. That's what we're doing.
Love that.
So yeah, if you want to work with me on a long-term basis, we do the CV, we do the interview, we do the negotiation, we do the confidence. So yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love that. And do you have any final words? Actually, before I say final words, I just want to say thank you so much, because I have taken so much. Like I feel like I've been finessed, and I'm not gonna be finessed any longer. I'm not gonna lie. Everybody that's watching, listening, understands what I'm talking about here. They're gonna be like, "Rah, this is mad." Like this is honestly, like I'm saying this, like I'm being so honest, because like I said, I've been in a career for 10 years, and I've learned so much. I'm like, rah, I need to change my whole approach.
I think it's just perspective.
Yeah,
honestly.
but it's testament to like the value and the know-how. So much. So yeah, really appreciate you, Del. Do you have any final words for the watchers and
I
listeners?
do. Anyone who's watching, anyone who's listening, if what you wanted was where you are, you'd have it already. So sometimes it's worth trying something different. Because I'm very much a believer that we will have all the problems instead of the solutions. We'll say, this won't work, this won't work, this won't work. But if you knew what worked, you would have it now. So even if you don't 100% think like, oh, that's not going to work, what if you just try something different? Because what you're currently doing is why you're currently where you're at. So that's my final thought. Like, if what you wanted was where you are, you would have it already. So with your mindset, with the way you make moves, try something different.
Love that. Thank you so much, Adele. Thank you, watchers and listeners, for tuning into this episode of the podcast, and we'll see you next week's episode.